May we have your attention, please?
Retaining corporate memory is vital for almost every organisation. It helps us learn and reduces the likelihood of making the same mistakes again. That's particularly important in a safety-critical industry like ours, where the consequences of an accident can have life-changing or even fatal consequences. To help us keep on the right track, RSSB has, for the last 10 years, been producing a magazine with the title Right Track. To talk about its history and its purpose, I have with me Greg Morse, who could perhaps be called Mr. Corporate Memory at RSSB. Welcome, Greg. If you would, please start by telling us how Right Track came about and what it was intended to do.
Thank you, Anne. I've been called many things at RSSB, but I'll take that one with great joy and happiness. Right Track really came about because the industry itself wanted a way of sending safety messages to frontline staff, to drivers, signallers, track workers, everybody really. And they didn't really feel that there was a method, a means of doing that really got to the nub of the safety issues. So RSSB stepped in.
Thank you very much. So what made Right Track different from what was already out there?
One of the things we consciously tried to do was to look very different. The earliest versions of Right Track had a look of a rock music or lifestyle magazine, rock music for my own preference, because we felt that if we could be appealing enough as a real magazine, so to speak, somebody in a mess room somewhere might just pick us up because they thought we looked interesting and not because they thought they had to, because it was a safety thing, quote unquote. We were therefore quite different from organs like Rail News, the staff newspaper, which still has a great readership, of course, and staff newsletters. We tried to be a little bit less corporate, a little bit more chatty in our tone. Humour, indeed, was used sometimes and still is to a slightly lesser extent, all to try to create an attitude of safety in the reader, almost without them knowing it.
Thank you, Greg. So you're trying to be a bit different. What firsts did we bring?
We actually did a few, and it may surprise some readers now, but back in issue 1, we were very heavy on the platform train interface, and that was very unusual at the time. RSSB stats had only just started to see an upturn in the trend of risk at the PTI. So that was something that I think we took on very early on and before a lot of other people did. And as we went on through that first year or two, we looked at suicide at a time when that was less to the forefront of safety and health thinking in rail, with our piece last night, A Train Dispatcher Saved My Life. And we also featured drug use when we looked to overseas incidents, which is something that we still do at RSSB. And we featured a report from the Transport Safety Board of Canada on a drug use involving a driver. And that was incredibly rare, but it allowed us to raise the issue in a way that would be palatable to a wider number of people.
Thank you, Greg. If we were looking at things that other people were also covering, were we riding trends?
I think so, yes. I mean, road risk is a major work stream for RSSB in the industry now, but it really came out of work that Cyrus was doing, and that really shone a spotlight on it. But when that momentum started to pick up, we jumped right in there and started to feature that quite heavily. And also, bullying, sexism, misogyny is always with us, alas, and we featured comparatively recently in the New Look Right Track the story of Joanne Crompton on the heritage sector, but her experience matches very closely some of our female colleagues on the main line, and we featured that as well. We're trying to raise awareness of issues like this to try to stop it happening. Every issue, every page of every issue is trying to demonstrate why these things are unsafe, wrong, immoral, to try to build a better, safer railway, as RSSB's own tagline still has it.
Thank you again, Greg. So what do we see is the future for Right Track? How do we keep the debate alive about safety, about performance, about the other ethical issues that you've mentioned?
Well, I'm very keen that we retain the tone that we started with, the chattier, we're on your side tone. There's nothing more dispiriting, I think, than reading a very dry report, which has all the information in that anyone could ever need, but in a way that just doesn't inspire. We try to tell stories in Right Track, and I think we'll carry on doing that. But we'll move into other areas. We'll feature health more because the railway looks at health more. It's now very much health and safety. When RSSB started and when Right Track started, very much the emphasis was on safety, and SPADs in particular, in fact. We now understand that leading health and safety on Britain's railway, that the strategy that the industry has signed up for is a very wide-ranging beast, and we need to cover all of these elements. I think we'll feature more online content going forward as well. We will try to feature more in our individual member companies' own intranets and dissemination systems too. Any way really we can to get the stories out there. And Red is in the same bracket as well, of course. Red and Right Track go hand in hand in many ways.
Thank you, Greg. Now, you've just mentioned two of our words, health and safety, and they are significant parts of the rail industry's safety strategy, written down in Leading Health and Safety on Britain's Railway. How does Right Track fit in with that activity?
Well, we have links to all of the cross-industry risk groups that sit below that strategy, and various people, we call them PRISMs, Principal Implementation Managers at RSSB, who deal with each of those groups, and they have a number of risk areas under their wing. And the system we're setting up is that these groups, through our people, through the RSSB people, feed stories into Right Track magazine. Now, we'll always retain the right to go off not at a tangent, but to tell the story of, say, an accident from 20 years ago, like the Potters Bar accident of May 2002. But if we think there's learning to be brought forward, but it's going to be more up to the risk groups to tell us what they think they need to be telling the front line, with our own expertise factored into that, of course.
Okay, thank you, Greg, for summing that up very nicely. I hope it's drawn attention to the importance of Right Track to many more of our frontline workers, and indeed to those who manage them, and that we will continue to produce a lot of safety-related material that helps everybody run a better, safer railway. Thank you, Greg. Until the next time we talk about another aspect of learning from experience and retaining that corporate memory. And to everybody who's listened so far, thank you very much for staying with us. Until the next time, stay safe.